Our story doesn't start with a bang, but with a whimper, a really, really bad hangover. The year is 1919. World War I is over, leaving behind a world in ruins and a peace treaty, the Treaty of Versailles, that was less peace and more powder keg. Imagine, Germany, humiliated and economically crippled, is ripe for a charismatic leader with a grudge. Enter Adolf Hitler, a failed artist with a talent for fiery speeches and a dangerous ideology. The Treaty of Versailles was designed to prevent future wars, but it ended up creating the perfect conditions for one. Germany, stripped of its territories, its military might, and forced to pay exorbitant reparations, was seething with resentment. This wasn't just about losing a war, it was about national humiliation on a grand scale. It was in this climate of despair and anger that the seeds of extremism were sown. Meanwhile, in Italy, Benito Mussolini is strutting around, promising to restore Roman glory. A former journalist with a flair for the dramatic, Mussolini created the fascist movement, with its promises of order, strength, and a return to past greatness. He capitalized on the social unrest and economic woes that plagued Italy after World War I, offering a seductive vision of national revival. His black-shirted followers marched through the streets, intimidating opponents and creating an atmosphere of fear and obedience. Japan is flexing its military muscles in Asia, with expansion on its mind. Japan, a relatively latecomer to the imperial game, was eager to carve out its own sphere of influence in Asia. Its military leaders believed that expansion was necessary for Japan's survival and prosperity, leading to aggressive policies in China and other parts of the region. This expansionist drive put Japan on a collision course with the United States and other Western powers. The world is doing a jitterbug, but beneath the dance floor, fault lines are appearing. We see the Weimar Republic. Hyperinflation hits Germany. A loaf of bread costs more than your house. This economic meltdown breeds desperation and fuels extremism. Hitler and his Nazi party are gaining popularity by promising to make Germany great again. It's giving major dark foreshadowing. The Weimar Republic, Germany's attempt at democracy after World War I, was a fragile experiment. Beset by political instability, economic hardship, and social unrest, it struggled to gain legitimacy in the eyes of the German people. The hyperinflation of the early 1920s was a particularly devastating blow. Imagine carrying wheelbarrows full of worthless banknotes just to buy basic necessities. This economic catastrophe wiped out savings, destroyed the middle class, and created a sense of national crisis that the Nazis were able to exploit. And let's not forget Spain. The Spanish Civil War becomes a dress rehearsal for Wabipud, with fascists and communists duking it out, and the world powers choosing sides. It's a chaotic mess, a prelude to the symphony of destruction about to unfold. The Spanish Civil War was a brutal and bloody conflict that pitted left-wing Republicans against right-wing nationalists led by General Francisco Franco. It became a proxy war for the rest of Europe, with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy supporting Franco and the Soviet Union backing the Republicans. The war showcased the horrors of modern warfare, including aerial bombardment of civilian populations, and foreshadowed the ideological battles that would define World War II. The mystery here: could anyone have stopped this slide into madness? Were there signs we missed? Keep that thought simmering, detectives. This period is full of what-ifs. What if the Treaty of Versailles had been less punitive? What if the Western powers had taken a firmer stance against early aggression by the Axis powers? These are the questions that historians still grapple with, and they serve as a chilling reminder of how easily the world can stumble into war. Boom! September 1st, 1939. Hitler, feeling his oats, unleashes the Blitzkrieg, lightning war, on Poland. It's a terrifying new kind of warfare, tanks, planes, and soldiers moving so fast it's like something out of a science fiction movie. Poland falls in weeks. The world is stunned. Britain and France declare war, but it feels a bit like showing up to a gunfight with a sternly worded letter. The invasion of Poland was a shock to the world. The speed and ferocity of the German attack, combining fast-moving armored divisions with devastating air power, overwhelmed the Polish defenses. The Polish army, fighting bravely but outmatched, was quickly defeated. The invasion marked the beginning of a new era of warfare, one characterized by speed, mobility, and overwhelming firepower. It also demonstrated Hitler's ruthlessness and his willingness to break international agreements. France. The impenetrable Maginot Line, bypassed. The French army, crushed. Paris falls. It's a disaster. But one man, Winston Churchill, rises like a bulldog with a microphone, vowing to fight on the beaches, in the air, and everywhere else. The Battle of Britain begins. Spitfires and hurricanes dance in the skies against the Luftwaffe. It's a David and Goliath story with a very uncertain ending. The Blitz. London is burning. But Britain will not yield. The fall of France was a stunning defeat for the Allies. The Maginot Line, a massive series of fortifications built to protect France's eastern border, was outflanked by the German army, which swept through the Ardennes forest. The French army, considered one of the strongest in Europe, collapsed in a matter of weeks. The British Expeditionary Force was forced to evacuate from Dunkirk in a desperate and heroic rescue operation. The fall of Paris, the City of Lights, sent shockwaves around the world. But in Britain, a new Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, rallied the British people with his defiant speeches and unwavering determination. His words, broadcast over the radio, inspired resistance and became a symbol of defiance against Nazi tyranny. The Battle of Britain, the aerial campaign fought over the skies of England, was a crucial turning point. The Royal Air Force, outnumbered but flying with skill and courage, managed to hold off the Luftwaffe, preventing a German invasion. The Blitz, the sustained bombing of British cities, was a brutal test of the British people's resilience, but they endured, finding shelter in underground stations and displaying remarkable fortitude. Then, the biggest gamble of all. Operation Barbarossa. Hitler, obsessed with conquering the Soviet Union, unleashes the largest invasion in history. Millions of soldiers, thousands of tanks, a front stretching for miles. Stalin is caught napping. The Soviets are pushed back, losing ground, millions of soldiers are captured. But the vastness of Russia, the brutal winter, and the fierce Soviet resistance begin to slow the German advance. Here's the mystery. Did Hitler overreach? Was Barbarossa the turning point in disguise? Operation Barbarossa was a monumental undertaking, driven by Hitler's ideological hatred of communism and his desire for Lebensraum, living space, in the East. The initial German advance was swift and devastating, catching the Soviet Union unprepared and resulting in massive Soviet losses. However, the sheer size of the Soviet Union, combined with the harsh winter conditions and the resilience of the Red Army, began to take its toll on the German forces. The Battle of Moscow, fought in the winter of 1941-1942, marked the first major German defeat and shattered the myth of German invincibility. It was a turning point.